Hey everybody, it's Ron Bass with Soar High Personal Development for another edition. Today, I've got some great folks with me. I've got Davin Hunley, our producer. I've got Mike Rose, our executive producer. Dr. Charles Deberry, and he's got a lot of titles besides doctor. And then Brent Atterberry, our marketing guru. So last week we were talking about why do we work, and that was a great podcast that we did. And today we're going to segue into talking about why would you want to be an entrepreneur? Entrepreneur, like A-N, entrepreneur, like manure.
Got it.
We got it. So anyway, Charlie had to school me on that, not to use a pun since he was a school teacher. But anyway, moving forward. So Charlie, what's going on today? What are we going to talk about entrepreneurship?
Okay. All right. I've been thinking about this, and it came up with something that bothers me. We talk about people becoming entrepreneurs. They're going to go out and become an entrepreneur, and they're going to be this big success and all this stuff. And I got to thinking about all the things it requires to be an entrepreneur. I mean, it's an incredible thing. It's a complicated thing to become an entrepreneur. And let me give this if I may, permission to make an analogy.
You have my permission, sir.
All right. So it's like you meet some young lady and you say, "Hi, Mary. What are you going to do?" And she says, "Oh, I'm going to be a Olympic gymnast." And you go, "Really?" And she goes, "Yeah. I'm majoring in Olympic gymnastics at school, and when I get out, I'm going to be an Olympic gymnast." And you go, "You're out of your mind." You're truly out of your mind if you think majoring and studying to be an Olympic gymnast is going to make you one. Now, if you have all of the things it requires, all of the stuff that it requires to be that kind of athlete, then you probably can be that person, all right? But just to say I'm majoring in it, I'm going to be an Olympic champion, is the same thing to me as saying I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And here's why. Entrepreneurs, I don't think anyone sits around, or very few people sit around and go, "I'm going to be an entrepreneur." No, people come up with some wild hair and they decide to say, "I think I'd like to do that." And they come up with an idea and they pursue it. And then maybe they develop it into some kind of business that makes some money. That's my idea. And then maybe later they can go, "Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur." Well,
it starts with an idea. Usually somebody has an idea to make money.
Right.
And then from there, it materializes, or it doesn't.
Yeah.
Depending on the person, depending on if they're motivated enough to continue with the idea or not, if they get funded or not, if they can find people to agree with them or not to move forward with an idea.
Well, okay, Ron, and I'm going to ask Brent a question here in a second. But there was if you've got the ability, the talent, the brains, the work ethic, some luck, a lot of luck, and all these things they all come together. You've got a good shot at doing some things. But now I was looking this morning, depending on whose numbers you use, 70 to 90% of all startups fail within the first year. All right. Those that don't, most of them fail in the second and third year. Right. So
it's a pretty high percentage of failure.
Yeah. So with that in mind, I guess we could talk first, not about why other people do stuff, but why did we branch out on our own and decide that we were gonna? It's so much safer. It seems to work for somebody else.
Much easier.
Why did you decide to do?
In my case, it was. I talked about it. I think maybe on the last podcast. I think environment's got a lot to do with everything. I grew up in Springfield. I'm Jewish, and there was just a few hundred, maybe 100 families, Jewish families, and almost every one of these people had their own business. So as a little boy growing up, basically all I knew was either to become a lawyer or a banker or a business owner, some kind of a professional. So it was just automatic for me growing up. Now, that's not to say everybody's going to be in that same boat, but that in my case, that's really how it worked. I just didn't know any other trade to go into.
What, did you come up with the idea on your own? Somebody give it to you?
The idea of my first business was I opened up well, I did the same thing you did. I had a tavern. They called it taverns back then, but it was basically it was a club. I brought in live music. My idea there was a friend of mine was a musician and he was playing in clubs. And I said, hey, man, maybe we'll just open up our own club together. And he said, well, that's a great idea. And we did. And that lasted about 4 months. That's another long story. We got raided by the local prosecuting attorney and got shut down and made the news for about 30 days later. We had to go to court. It was a big mess. We had fights and all kinds of craziness going on down there. But I was 20 years old, so I didn't know a whole lot about anything at that point.
Well, Brent, you decided to work for yourself, basically, right?
That's right.
Why? Wouldn't it have been more comfortable just to draw that fat salary from somebody else?
Yeah, it was the first couple of years. I was working for a small advertising agency, loved what I did, had success there, but I felt like I could do it better on my own. And there were some of the things they were doing there I didn't really like or agree with. And when I got out on my own, it was really hard. I had good intentions and I was planning on doing it better, but boy, it is tough the first year. That's all I got to say.
And I bet that's one reason why so many people do not make it in business, because it's just too difficult that first year.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people have money backing them. Okay.
To cover the losses until they become profitable. And if they don't have the funds, they can't afford the losses. They go out of business. They just don't have the money to keep going.
Here's something interesting. There's a negative relationship, an inverse relationship between how much money you've got to start your business and your likelihood to fail. People who have the most money are most likely to fail because they tend to overstart.
Overstart.
If you don't have any money, you start small. Because I started with the idea of how much money could I afford to lose this month, and that's how I started. Actually, it's okay. Just real quick. Here's the deal. A friend of mine, we both had great jobs, but it was Christmas break and we were out shooting some pool and drinking some beer. And we couldn't get a table at this place we were playing pool. The guy said, I know a place out in the country. Let's go out there. So we drove out in the country and we pulled up to this log cabin that was a bar, but it was closed and it had been shut down. And we both had a few beers. We said, hey, this is too bad. Let's buy this thing and open it. And then
how many beers did you have?
Quite a few.
Okay.
Then we got to talking about how, every bar we go to, there's something about it we don't like. If we owned our own, we could just change everything and make it perfectly, just like we like it. So we made a few phone calls, and the next morning we were inside this log cabin sitting on empty beer cases in the dark, no utilities yet, right? In the dark, and we looked at each other and went, we bought a damn bar. and that was how it all started. And then there's a long road up from there. But so anyway, you somehow or another, you get started in your own business, but it's risky. You take all kinds of chances. Like most people fail, but there's something intriguing about it other than my family did it or whatever. But I think, Brent probably hit on it. I think the real reason, if I've dug down, is I wanted to be my own boss,
Yeah, I think that probably, I wanted to make the decisions because I didn't like the decisions that were being made. I would agree with that.
Turn the key in that door every morning. It's your key. It's your door. It's your place. Yeah.
Yeah. So
a sense of fulfilling your own your own desire to be on your own.
Yeah.
And to be independent.
Yeah, and the downside of that is who gets to tell you that you need to go home? What time?
You never go home. I can remember many months sleeping on the floor in my office just because it just didn't make sense to go home. It was so late at night.
I work with a lot of businesses now, and a lot of the guys I've ran into over the years will tell me, I went out, I started this business, and I think all I did was buy myself a job. Because they said, I sit here, I don't make any more money than I take home on my salary, but And I come in every day like everybody else, and I own the place, but it comes with a lot of headaches and a lot of work. And I bought myself a job. That's what I hear a lot.
But there's something very
Yeah.
satisfying about it.
Yeah, but I want to pick up just real quick, Brent. A lot of that is a lot of people have businesses, but they're not entrepreneurs. So, in other words, if you just run the business, and let's say you got it from your dad, and you just run the business the same way it's always been run, you do just have a job. You're a person who is an entrepreneur, is an innovator who's always creating new ways to do things, new ways to look at things. They've got to be creative, and
Particularly to keep up with the marketplace, because things are changing so fast. If you're not keeping up with it, you're going to either fix it or get out of the way.
well, I like the story about the guy.
Because your competition will eat your lunch if you're not ahead of the curve.
Oh, sure. I like the guy I met who decided that coffee grounds shouldn't be thrown away, and so he made a deal with all the Starbucks and everybody in the area, and drove around with his pickup and collected everyone's coffee grounds every day, and then came up with this formula for turning coffee grounds into fire logs and fire starter sticks. And once he developed that, he didn't want to run the business. He just likes coming up with ideas. So once he had it going, he didn't have any interest in running it. But a company in India thought it was a great idea, so they bought it from him, and he did well. I don't know. He went on to
Another project.
to another.
Yeah. Being innovative, I think, is a big part of, being a business owner, coming up with ideas nobody else done, or building a better mousetrap, doing it better than your competition. You don't have to reinvent the wheel necessarily.
I think without innovation, though, I mean, again, I have some friends who are really hard-nosed about this innovation thing, and they set that as the absolute criteria. If you're not doing something creative, you're not, an entrepreneur, and so you have to constantly look at what you're doing.
I think I'd like to address the people out there that are struggling with their business and how to hang in there and not give up. It's like you said earlier, most people do fail, but I think the biggest reason people fail is because they do just give up. Oftentimes, success is just right there around the corner, and people throw in the towel. If you just don't throw in the towel, and you don't have a time frame, if you can survive, and you may have to reduce your overhead, you may have to cut corners, but if you don't give up, sooner or later, you're probably going to find your way to profitability.
I think you've got to reach out to people that have been there, done that.
And have them as
there's
mentors.
typically a playbook on how to play the game in whatever industry you're in. And I say that real loosely, but if you know how the game is played and how to win and make money and get where you're trying to go with the means that you have, then you can get there. If you go by the rules, play by the rules, you do what it takes.
Play by the rules and persevere and put in the work.
You do it because
and have some good mentorship.
Yeah, a restaurant. I mean, I know this is oversimplification, but you got to give good service. The food's got to be hot.
Right.
It doesn't have to be always great, but if it's hot and it's got good service, you got a chance.
Unless you're serving cold sandwiches, then.
That's true.
All right, listen. Interesting idea. One is when we talk about creativity, let's make a quick comment. And that is that we can pursue this later, but timing is really important. And I say that because of a guy who was on board a ship in the 1950s, and he came up with the idea of a push-button telephone.
Oh, my.
And everybody just laughed him off the ship, and he never did anything with it.
Oh, no.
Now, anyway, with that in mind, I think probably when we continue this, Ron, let's look at having a clear purpose and risk taking.
Well, I think you have to have a game plan. You have to have some kind of an outline to go forward with your business idea. You can't just go in there blind. You have to have some capital, some money, and you have to have some people in your court to help you to move forward with your business. At any rate, I guess that's about it for today. So time really flies around here when you're in good company, so to speak. Let me emphasize good company. Any rate, thanks, guys, for being here today. And this is another edition of Soar High Personal Development. Next week, we're going to be talking about risk-taking and being a business owner and why that matters and how that affects your decision-making. And so that's it for today, everybody. Have a great day.